All right, folks, so what is going on? I am back with another episode of Read, Episode 10, Chapter 3. So I was actually supposed to do this yesterday right after doing Chapter 2, or Part 2, as a lot of people on Reddit call, is, they're basically just updates. If it's an actual series like that. Now, in my case, unfortunately, something came up and I didn't actually get to do it right away, and I was like, I was so cheesed because I really wanted to get it done. But anyways, without further ado, let's get to it. I hid from the rain behind the wheel of my car, still holding the mush of wet paper in my hand. It had begun to fall apart, even the Mr. Warner. What? What? Sorry, guys. Even the Mr. Warner. He part becoming a blue dot. Not sure exactly what they meant to say, or maybe I'm just not reading it right. Let me just mute this. Sorry, guys. You guys are going to hear ding. I'm getting messages left, right, and center today for tomorrow being Canada Day or whatever. So my apologies about that. Even yesterday, I'm not sure if you guys heard the dings or whatever. Where was I? There was nothing to learn from that piece of paper, I decided. So I buzzed down the window and tossed it out. I'm not dumb. Why did you try to spell help or he? I realized Mary was trying to warn me about something. Okay. So what I'm going to assume, back like a few seconds ago, I couldn't realize what they was trying to say, and I said I might have read it wrong. At the part where it says, it had begun to fall apart, even the Mr. Warner. He part becoming a blue dot. I think this person meant to type the he part, which at that point they probably should have put quotes, like an open and close quotation around the he, signifying that was basically a part of the note or whatever it was that they read, which now I'm starting to understand. So just clarify. You guys may have already understood that. I didn't, and I apologize. I'm going to try not to stop reading so it's more fluent. I'm not dumb whether she tried to spell help or he. I realized Mary was trying to warn me about something. I should have been alarmed, but in the moment, sitting in a warm and comfortable car with the doors locked too, having been handsomely paid, it was hard to believe she or I were in any danger. Taylor was an old man, and I hadn't noticed anything especially aggressive about him. Sure, his stories were odd, but I dare you to find a man or a woman of his age without an odd story or two. If anything, I was more curious than ever to find out what his deal was. And now I had some clues to help me. I drove off and left Tampa Palms, this time with the calmness and determination. Not only was I determined to complete the job I was given, getting to the bottom of John Taylor's story, but also no longer to be reactive about it. I had to dig up as much crap on John Taylor as I could. I admit it was a selfish pursuit, not only because of the money, although that was a big part of it. Although that was a big part of it at the time. Kind of like that last big score the last big score bad guys bank on in movies. I hoped this job would help me quit writing that 99-cent Kindle crap. Oh, okay, sorry guys. And finally get to work. Sorry, I couldn't understand the 99-cent Kindle. Now he's talking about the price of a book on the Kindle store, whatever you'd call it. I don't know. And finally get to work on my novel. Yes, I'm that kind of writer. But another point, and I'm sure you've thought of it too by now, was this the idea of potential fame? Cheesy as it sounds, You know how you sometimes you imagine. Wow. Sorry, guys. You know how you sometimes you imagine yourself being a hero? That really gave me a brain fart there. They used you twice and they didn't even need to. But anyways, being a hero in a force majeure situation. Like knocking out a robber at your corner store or a terrorist on a plane. Those were my thoughts on the way back home. If Taylor was indeed a killer, or better yet, a serial killer, I couldn't help but imagine myself being the one to catch him. And I didn't want to be just a fuck. Sorry. And I didn't want it to be just a fucking Bay News 9 report either. I was thinking big. I was thinking national news, movie option, the whole deal. Hell, I could have been writing my own autobiography and not John Taylor's. The thought made me smile and must have made me step on the pedal some because I made it home in record time. Interesting that he keeps track of how long it takes him. I'm just kidding. The notebook went on my desk as I intended to work out some sort of timeline for my interviewee and then trying to fill in the blanks where I could. But first, there was another thing to take care of. I don't talk to my parents much. My dad lives somewhere in Europe. This year, it's Italy. Hey, I'm Italian. I think. But no, I'm not. I think. I know I'm Italian. Bad joke. But at the time, it was Spain. He sent me an email from a winery. But that was it. My mom lives in San Jose, and we take our turns flying out for Christmas. And she calls me every other week. There's usually not much to say, except when she updates me on Jane's life. We broke up about 2 years ago when she moved to San Francisco. And they meet for lunch, apparently. I never wonder, but then maybe I do. Somewhere deep on the inside. The point is, I don't have many people to call or text in case of emergency. Since it would take them anywhere from 5 to 12 hours to get here. Good times. After a moment, though, I did send my mom a text saying I'd be at John Taylor's address for the next couple of weeks. If she needed me. Let me just reread that. Sorry, guys. After a moment, though, I did send my mom a text saying I'd be at John Taylor's address for the next couple of weeks if she needed me. I didn't want to raise any concerns, so naturally there was no mention of my new possible serial killer friend. Back at the desk and at the laptop, I messaged a few Facebook friends. Sorry, guys. As well, sorry, guys. I keep screwing this up. Back at the desk and at the laptop, I messaged a few Facebook friends as well, half casually letting them know, half bragging that I had this huge gig at this fancy place. It was a bit embarrassing, but it was as far as I was willing to go to ensure my safety. I could imagine the papers reading, dumb freelance writer saved from a serial killer or dumb freelance writer murdered in Tampa Palms, which made me ask myself just how far I was willing to go. In the end, I decided if it came to it, I'd be able to fight off an old man. But to prevent that, I had to be ready. And if there was one thing I had, it was prep time. I closed Facebook and opened my notebook, ready to organize the notes. I was never good at writing things down, and my account of the first 2 interviews looked like something a madman would scribble on the walls of his cell. There were dates and phrases in an obituary order. In an obituary order. But several hours of matching them with what I could find online, I had my timeline. It wasn't much, but it was a start. 1938, born. 1945, age 7, A. Father dies a hunting accident. Check. B. Michael Slolin is born. 1945 or earlier. 1952. Living in Denver, Colorado. 1952. Barbara the nanny disappears. Dead? 1953 to 1955. Living in Topeka, Kansas. 1952. Jimmy found dead. 1955 to 1951. Question marks. 1991. Car accident in Buffalo, New York. Find driver. 2002 to 2016. Living in Tampa, Florida. One thing was clear. Wherever Taylor went, bad things happened. But there were many inconsistencies, too, in John Taylor's stories that didn't match up in some places. My plan was to confirm as much as possible online and then bring the notes to the man to clear things up. But then I asked myself, would that be smart? If John Taylor was a serial killer, I figured, and had been putting me on this whole time. Sorry, guys. And he'd be putting me on this whole time. I would have to assume his lies were calculated. He had been keeping track of the dates he was giving me. Or were they all fiction and thought of on the spot? Either way, it would be curious to keep this timeline close to the vest for now. And let him inadvertently add to it. And if he asked, I could always show him my notes and say it was a work in progress. There was no news from Taylor or his nurse for a few days, not on the phone, nor through the freelance site message system. It said the user hadn't been online since the last time either. I was starting to get a little concerned, but at the same time, those few days of staying home had been very welcome. I cleared my head and did some more research into Taylor's childhood. His father did indeed die in Denver back in 1945. A short obituary in a local paper confirmed he died hunting without any specifics. The paper called his death a tragic accident. Similarly, I found nothing more on Barbara or anyone connected to the family at the time. The chances that any of them would be alive were slim at best, anyway. So I continued to search chronologically and looked for accidents in Topeka in 1953. My search was rather particular, and there was only one result that corresponded to dead child found in sewers. There was a low-resolution B&W, or black and white, picture of a kid lying on the ground, and that sent chills down my back. There was something creepy in the idea that Taylor was there at the time. Maybe even killed that kid. All of a sudden, it felt too real. Once I'd paced the room a bit, I sat back down and read the article. Jim Winslow, age 8, found dead in an old factory. No sign of sexual assault. Thank freaking Christ. Cause of death, a blow to the head. The crime was blamed on the homeless who had been known to camp out at the factory, which triggered the police sweeps of the area, as well as other abandoned structures in the town. In the end, some hobo was arrested and later killed in a cell awaiting trial. The case was solved, but of course, I knew better, didn't I? What did interest me was that little Jimmy had a sister, Susan Winslow, who was just 6 months old at the time, which would make her just 61 in 2016. I wrote her name on a separate piece of paper under witnesses. There have been other gruesome crimes committed in Topeka in the following years, but nothing that I could connect to Taylor in any way. Records weren't kept the way they are now, and there was only so much newspapers could give me. I tried looking for anything interesting in the Sloan family, but no luck. The closest I got was an article in some agricultural magazine about a transporting company owned by one Tom Sloan, which fit Taylor's story. I made a mental note to ask him next time. And that company had offices all over Kansas and neighboring states. So that gave me a hint. Sorry guys. So that gave me no hints as to where the family moved in 1955, if Taylor was to be believed. Next, I searched for George Sampson, the driver Taylor nearly killed in 1991. Sampson was 43 at the time, and if I remembered correctly, and it would have been 68. Sorry, guys. If I remembered correctly, and it would have been 68 in 2016. So there was a good chance I could have still gotten in touch with him. Alas, that wasn't going to happen. When I brought up the article about the 1991 accident, hoping to get the man's details, the site suggested me a related article, which I must have missed before. The title was Buffalo Resident Murdered in His Home. I hoped until the last moment that maybe it would... What the frick? Sorry, that maybe... I gotta reread that. I hoped until the last moment that maybe it would, the Buffalo part that connected... I think they meant to say that maybe it was the Buffalo part that connected the two articles. But I was lying to myself. Sure enough, George Sampson was found dead. Was found dead in the kitchen of his house in a pool of blood. Two things stood out to me immediately. One, this happened mere weeks after the accident, which would have been some shit luck. But two, his head was bashed in. That was too many coincidences for my liking. Although I was pumped to have found them, still, it wasn't quite enough to connect all the dots. There was a huge gap between 1955 and 1991, and 2016 for that matter. And I wanted nothing. Sorry, guys. And I wanted nothing more than to find out what other stories John Taylor had to tell. I grabbed my phone right away and began calling. The first call I tried to get to... Sorry, guys. The first call tried to get through for a whole minute before going dead. But the second one got through right away. Mary? I asked. There was a silence for a long moment, and then she replied, Mr. Warner, nice to finally hear from you. We were getting worried. There was that fake joy again. But then, before I could say anything, she said, hello? Yes, no, I can't hear you. As I began to reply, she cleared her throat loudly and purposefully, making me shut up. Then, no, still nothing? And then whispering, please come, Mr. Warner. I have your recorder. Yes, when? She resumed in a joyful tone. Yes, this is much better. Tuesday afternoon would be perfect, thank you. Yes, Mr. Taylor sends his regards. She hung up. So this is getting even better. I don't know if you guys can hear my voice. I am absolutely 110% intrigued. I am blown away by how incredible this story is getting. Oh my goodness. I just want you guys to know that this has to be, and I've said this probably at least once or twice before, this has to be the best story I have ever read. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, peace.